Good afternoon and welcome to Link. I happily and proudly introduce you to Ramona Rachel Gittens Morgan. Welcome, Ramona.
Hello. It's good to be here.
Ramona is opening a new show this week at, what's the name of the gallery, Ramona?
New Century Artist Gallery. And it's on 25th Street in Manhattan between 10th Avenue and 11th Avenue. And it's located in Suite 406. Let's see, the opening is on the 15th of February, and the show continues until the 26th of February.
What's the name of your show?
It's called Harriet Tubman, My Sister, Myself.
Harriet Tubman, My Sister, Myself. What does the title mean?
Well, I mean, I have had a fascination or an interest in Harriet Tubman that's gone back many, many years. When I was little, starting, I guess, at the beginning of time, there was a children's book that began, Harriet, she's a slave, work for your master from your cradle to your grave. And I used to just turn that over in my head a lot, and it was like a little bit of a rhyme that kind of stuck with me, in part because my parents had a very meticulous way of reading to us, and so we wouldn't just read straight through that, but we would discuss the term master and what it meant and if you could use that for a human being or not. And so it was the simplicity of it and all the implications of it and the assumptions of it from your cradle to your grave that always stuck with me. And what I became interested in over time was the process of emancipation that took place within her that enabled her to physically free herself and to then go on to free others.
Wait, just hold on. How did you jump from, you made a tremendous leap to the emancipation. How did you,
well, the story of Harriet Tubman is of a woman who literally walked out of freedom into the out of slavery into free states, and then returned back many, many times. She was referred to as the Moses of her people. And the basic story of Harriet Tubman is one of someone who walks themselves and other people to freedom. And so the original rhyme, work for your master from your cradle to your grave, is the assumption. But that very basic truth about the lives of most people enslaved at that time, that you would work from your cradle to your grave, is a very basic truth that she obliterated and changed. Because she didn't. She wasn't enslaved her entire life.
At what point did you, now you say that this started when you were very little.
Right.
At what point did that into your mind? That she would, oh, well, I guess from the story.
Right. Right. So it's a story where you know what the end is going to be. And you know that her essential story is a story of a person freeing themselves. But that initial rhyme was always what stuck with me, and always what I thought was really fascinating, in particular because there is, I think, in children's books, and also I think also in adult reading also, there's a tendency to focus on the physical aspects of suffering or of revolution or of what people have gone through, and I think that's, the physical aspect of slavery is the aspect of slavery. It's the African body being used for labor and being used to develop agriculture in the New World. And so that is a physical story, and it's rooted in the African body. But then there's a story that I think transcends that in so many ways. And it's very interesting. It's always been interesting to me when you read slave narratives and
hold on. Before you get to the slave narrative, let me stick with the little children's book for a little while here. Did you, at that young age, did you see the difference between the physical and the psychological and the emotional? I mean, you just broke them down, but at what point did that happen for you? Do you think it happened when you were young? I mean, people do focus on the physical part of slavery.
Right.
But we all know that you can be chained mentally and emotionally. So
Where did that separation come from?
Were you conscious of it when you were reading
You know, it would be
book?
hard to say exactly when. My father did a sculpture called Ex-Slaves, and it shows a man who's going like this, and but he doesn't have shackles on anymore, and it's, you know, without oversimplifying it, it's about mental enslavement, and also about emotional emancipation, because it's about enslavement. There's also a story about freedom in there, I think, and how a person can free themselves. And so I think that because of that, and maybe some other things, this idea of physical bondage and mental bondage were, those were clear distinctions that I was aware of, because that was part of the discussion. So I'd like to give myself credit for it, but I think it was kind of part of the bigger discussion that you know, that was part of the context I lived in. I mean, and even being in, you know, in Bushwick and growing up in the 80s, I mean, you saw the effects of drug use and crime and different things, and so this idea of people being, you know, in an ongoing bondage that's to an extent self-imposed was something that was also being played out in different, you know, in different aspects of my life but I was able to see those distinctions because it had been presented to me in some ways.
Wow. Now, at what point did you become familiar with the slave narratives?
I think I had read the autobiography of Frederick Douglass when I was fairly young. I think I was in 3rd grade. And I don't know if it was, I mean, I read his complete autobiography later, so it was a sort of a child's version with excerpts and maybe some illustrations, but that was the first time hearing it in the writer's, in the person's voice that clearly. And I went on after that to just become more and more interested in them. There were other aspects, such as like Roots being out around that time, different things that I think drew you to understand and consider slavery more back then than now, whereas I think now people don't really get that many opportunities to reflect on it or to even, you know, think about it. But
the way you were describing your development of this concept of bondage, I mean, you already saw the bondage of the drugs, and you didn't see that as being so different from the other type of slavery. Am I wrong?
Right.
I mean, you were always seeing these connections from what you're describing to me right now.
Right. I mean, I can't say that I saw them at like 5 years old versus, you know,